Welcome everyone to today's webinar on AI for inclusive education, amplifying advocacy and transforming practice. Today's guest speaker is Cosgriff, Ph.D. He's assistant professor teaching special education in the teacher education program at Morehead State University. He has 8 years of experience as a middle school special educator, focusing on students with autism, and 12 years in higher education. His research and teaching interest spans communication, collaboration, assistive technologies, including Gen AI, assessment, post-secondary transition, self-determination, and advocacy for individuals with disabilities. So without further ado, welcome.
Thank you, Devon. And for full disclosure, I have a class. I'm in my classroom right now with several of my students in attendance, so they can't see the screen because it's a different setup, but they can hear me. So I'm going to kind of start sharing my slides now. And again, the title is AI for Inclusive Education, Amplifying Advocacy and Transforming Practice. And specifically, I'm talking about using AI to include people with disabilities in practical ways so that we can increase equity, advocacy, and access for all individuals. And as Devon said, I'm an assistant professor at Morehead State University in Kentucky. So my 4 primary goals today are to identify some inclusive uses of AI tools. I'm going to spend a lot of the time demonstrating how to actually kind of create prompts and then work with those prompts in order to help individuals with disabilities or to communicate or improve access. And I will also consider some ethical and equitable uses of AI and explore how educators, families, and advocates can use AI collaboratively. If you have questions during the presentation, I told my students to write them down. But if you have questions, you can either use, I believe, the Q&A or the chat box to ask those questions. I may not be able to address them until the last part of the meeting, but I have left room to include your questions. All right, so I wanted to first mention the Universal Design for Learning, or UDL. I've taught my students about that, and it's basically planning ahead of time how to incorporate multiple means of engagement and representation and action and expression in your lesson plan or in whatever you're doing so that everyone has access to the learning or the activity that's taking place. And I believe that AI can be a flexible learning support, both for classrooms and for outside, community-based and other kinds of training and instruction. All right, so my first demo, I'm going to read you this prompt first, and then I'll navigate over to ChatGPT to show you how this prompt works. So this is a kind of a scenario where there's a student who's in 3rd grade and this student loves trains, but they're having trouble kind of remembering their schedule. And so this following prompt in ChatGPT is designed to help me create a social story. This is a made-up student, but it could be a real student. So, okay, so it says, I have a student who is in 3rd grade and loves trains. Help me write a social story incorporating train schedules to help him learn his own morning schedule. And then I proceed to put the schedule in there from 8 a.m. till 11:30. So I'm going to now I'm going to stop sharing my PowerPoint and share the actual GPT screen. You see that? Okay, let's see if this one. hopefully you all can see a GPT screen. It says I'm screen sharing there. So what this has is that same prompt followed by, so the prompt is in gray. I'm going to kind of just turn the thing to my, so the prompt's up here in gray. And then everything that ChatGPT created is underneath. So I click on this arrow and it gives me the whole schedule. And what I'd like for my students and for those of you that are on the webinar to do is to think of a task or a activity that you might actually use in working with an individual who might have a disability, whether it's teaching or training in some way, and ask GPT or an AI, just write down what you might ask that GPT or AI if you were to use that to help you on the particular project. And I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I will kind of scroll through it again. So I'll read the first part. It says, my morning train schedule. I love trains. Trains run on a schedule. That means they arrive and leave at special times. So everything runs smoothly. At school, I also have a schedule, just like a train. When I follow my schedule, my day goes smoothly and I know what to expect. Let's look at my morning train schedule. And then it goes on, there's a little 8 a.m. Morning group train. The morning group train arrives at 8 a.m. I get on this train by joining my friends and teachers to start the day together. 8:30, reading group train. Next, the reading group train leaves the station at 8:30. I get on this train by going to my reading group to learn and read with friends. All right. And it just keeps going all the way from 9. So 9:30 was bathroom break, 9:45 math group, 10:15. And each one, again, it's incorporating that train kind of analogy or train theme into the schedule. And of course, and at the end, most of the time, these large language models will kind of like say, they'll ask your kind of like what you think of what they just produced. So what did we think of what ChatGPT just produced? It says at the end, if you like, I can also create a visual schedule with train icons or a printable, let's see, version to help reinforce the story. Would you like me to make that? So I could say, could you give me the, and what ChatGPT and other large language models are good at is kind of doing this in code or organizing things and formatting it. So I could say, could you create a visual schedule? And I'll just see what it does. So this is the part. I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but I'll just plug that in and see what ChatGPT comes up with. And right now, since I'm using the free version, it's telling me that it's just it's going to take a little bit. So
yeah, they can't see the full screen.
Okay. Well, let me stop sharing that one and go back to my and I noticed there's some questions, and maybe that's because maybe that's in the chat that you only see the Google homepage. I'm sorry about that. Let me try to share back to my original PowerPoint again. Can everyone see the PowerPoint? Here, let's from current slide.
Yes, just put it in presenter mode.
Yeah. All right. So that's one demonstration of what ChatGPT can do, and I'm for the sake of ease of doing this, I have students in here, and I'm just going to ask by raising your hand if any of you put in a ChatGPT or other prompt in there while I was doing my work. Not yet. Okay. Well, and I know it's hard to watch a webinar and get on ChatGPT at the same time, which is what I'm trying to do as well. So some of this you might not be able to do immediately, but it might be good to, again, to write it down on a piece of paper. And, this is a prompt I might try with my student. Oh, by the way, all these prompts and links to the GPTs that I'm talking about will be they're at the end of this slideshow. There's a link to all these resources for you. Okay, so a couple of other instructional AI tools. So there's general AI like ChatGPT, Gemini, Copilot, and these are general tools that anybody can access on the internet. But there's also some instructional AI tools that are specifically designed for education. And these are, I think, great at helping teachers to differentiate instruction and adapt learning materials. We've used them in my teacher education classes to come up with specific lesson plans and ways to teach. And it can generate a lot of good information very quickly. So one that's well known is called Magic School AI. I think some of my students have used either the free version and almost all these applications have free versions, although they will usually try to get you to buy into the paid version. Another one that I've used quite a bit is called Brisk Teaching. The reason I like that one is that it will an icon that comes up within a Google Doc, and you can just click on the icon, and then it'll pop up the ability for you to make a presentation based on what you've got in the Google Doc, or you can just put new material in from there. So it's a conveniently accessible. And then Diffit is another one that's specifically designed to differentiate instruction for individuals with a variety of disabilities. So these are all great tools for differentiating and adapting learning materials. And sometimes a school can buy a license for the whole school to use the paid version of whatever AI that school uses. And that's what I would if you are a teacher, I'd recommend using the school version because it's usually more secure and safe that way. If you just go online, and I'll bring this up a little later, there could be some safety concerns and other concerns. So if you're just going to practice using AI and you're not using, student data, then I think it's fine to go online and just to try it out and see how it works. But if you are trying to do it with particular students' information in mind, then you should definitely make sure that you're on a secure and safe platform. All right, I wanted to demonstrate adjusting a reading level or creating we'll probably just do the first one, adjusting. Let me see if I have I think I put the prompt in Copilot. So I'm going to stop sharing here again and go back into Copilot. Let's see if this, let me know in the chat box if you can see. I know my students can't see it, so I'm going to read anyway what's in here.
Yes,
and
we see it.
You can see it? Okay. I'm still going to read it just for the sake of my students and just because it's kind of fine print. So I want my 7th grade student who reads at a 3rd grade level to be able to determine the meaning of words and phrases as they are used in a text, including figurative and connotative meanings, analyze the impact of rhymes and other repetitions of sounds on a passage. And this is a Kentucky state standard, so that's why it's quoted there. And then I said, help me differentiate my instruction so he can understand Shakespeare's famous Summer's Day sonnet. So shall I compare thee to a summer's day? It could be part of the curriculum. And so I want a 7th grader whose reading level is a little low to be able to still participate and be included in that instruction process. So I click on my little button there, and this is what Copilot says. And since I'm doing this in real time, I don't know exactly whether it'll be great or not, but Copilot starts off by saying, you're aiming high, and I love it. Shakespeare can be tricky, but with the right approach, your student can absolutely grasp the beauty of Sonnet 18. So it already knew what sonnet I was talking about just with that little Here's how you can differentiate your instruction to make the sonnet more accessible. Step 1, build background knowledge. Before diving into the text, give your students some context. Explain who Shakespeare is and why he wrote sonnets. Then it mentions introducing the idea of comparing something to a summer's day. Maybe even ask, what do you think makes a summer's day nice? Step 2, simplify the language. Since the original text may be overwhelming, consider providing a kid-friendly paraphrase. For example, you're beautiful, and even summer isn't as nice as you are. Or maybe they could sing, I was just thinking there's a famous song that goes, you're like sunshine on a summer's day. Sorry for my singing there, but so I could throw that. It didn't mention that in the output yet, but it does say use visuals and audio. So, for example, show images of summer landscapes, read the sonnet aloud, emphasizing rhyme and rhythm, or find an engaging audio video version. Step 4 is identify key vocabulary, and so words like temperate, which are used in a specific context to mean mild and pleasant, lease, which we use today as like a form of rent, but it also means something that's temporary, and dimmed for faded. Step 5, make it interactive. Have your student act out parts of that sonnet with gestures or drawing. Use rhyming games. Can they think of modern words that rhyme like Shakespeare did? Encourage them to write their own sonnet, comparing a loved one to something special in their life. And step 6, scaffold meaning. Use sentence starters or graphic organizers. So on each line, this line means ... Or the word darling makes me feel ... Shakespeare repeats sounds to make it, however, in order to create this effect of the music of the poetry. So again, at the end, Copilot asked me a question: how does this approach sound to you? So I could go with that, but maybe I want to kind of have it change it up a little bit. So I'm interested in a few more vocabulary words. I would like my student to explore the vocabulary a little more. I'll just type that in and see what I get. Okay, so then it comes up with, again, vocabulary, hopefully from the text of the Sonnet 18. It's got create three categories: easy to understand words, day, I, love; descriptive words, rough, darling, golden; and tricky words, temperate, least, dimmed. Let your students sort the words from the sonnet into these groups. Second part is it gives me some word meanings with pictures. So encourage the student to draw or find images that represent words. So temperate, maybe a picture of a mild sunny day. Rough, drawing of strong winds, pushing the trees. Having putting the word lease next to a calendar, showing that it's temporary and the time is passing. Part 3 gives me an idea of finding modern synonyms. So the sonnet has these and thous, and it's, we could change those to use without changing the meaning very much. We could also take the word decline maybe and change that to fade away. They also Copilot mentions acting it out and playing matching word games. So again, these are, what I would recommend is putting these things, as a teacher, I would try to put this into AI early and kind of look over it a couple times while planning. And again, it kind of covers a lot of different material, and you don't have to, feel obligated to go with whatever it generates. You can, keep asking it prompts to get what it is that you really want it to do. All right, so any question, I'm gonna look around in my classroom and see, have them give me like a signal to see if they're understanding everything or if there's any questions. All right, I'm gonna stop sharing there and go back to my presentation for a minute. And we also in this class, I had them do some scenarios where we invented, some characters that were having, well, they were in different situations. And so we used AI to either kind of help create a mock IEP or at least to help come up with goals for that IEP, or to align lesson plan objectives with goals. So that's another great way to use ChatGPT or other forms of generative AI. Let's see if see if I can get my, okay. Another use of AI is for executive function support. So executive function means someone's ability to kind of plan and kind of think about what they're doing and problem solve. So there are some tools that have been, I think that are special. Well, Goblin Tools is an example of a AI that was designed with or non-neurotypical thinking, and it provides things like breaking down tasks to make things easier. And you can kind of, I think we're going to look at, I put in a task of cleaning a city bus, and I just put that into the Goblin little input box, and it just broke that down into all these steps. And you can break it into, like, each step you can break into sub steps. So it's very good for doing a task analysis. And the other one that I wanted to look at is Notebook LM. Notebook LM is another Google, or it's created by Google using, I think it probably uses Gemini or some generative AI. But with Notebook LM, you control what's in the notebook. So you can import up to, in the paid version, you can import up to 300 different documents or websites or videos. So you can implement, or you can kind of import all these things about a certain topic, and then you can get, you can ask the AI, it will read and analyze all that information, and it can give you in natural language summaries. It can also do a podcast of two AI voice generated people discussing all the content that you've uploaded. So that's kind of an interesting feature. And again, it's good for, both of these tools are good for breaking down complex tasks, especially Goblin Tools is good for breaking down complex tasks and creating structured workflows. And then Notebook LM, again, if you have lots of information about a particular topic, maybe you're interested in a particular disability or disability law or something like that, you can create this notebook with all of the information that you've kind of researched on your own, or even your own writing. If you want, you could copy and paste it into that Notebook LM, and it's a good way to summarize all that complexity, and rather than having AI, which is often based on what's on the internet, and some of the stuff on the internet is useful and some of it is not very useful. So if you're in control of what's in there, it can make it a stronger feature for you. All right, so I'm going to do a quick demo here. This might be my last couple of demos. Let's see if I can. I'm going to go to Goblin AI first. Let me see if I can go back to share. Let's see how to find it. All right, so on the Goblin website, it says one of the tools is called the Magic to Do. So it's underneath, it says breaking things down so you don't. And basically, again, I put cleaning the city bus here. underneath that, there's like a subtask: gather all necessary cleaning materials, supplies, including disinfectants, brooms, mops, and cloths. Under that one, identify the required supplies for cleaning a city bus, determine the surfaces and areas within the bus that require cleaning, and then I can break, there's a little button to the right side there that says breakdown item. So I can take that item and break it down even further. So within determining the areas that require cleaning, it mentions identify different surfaces such as seats, handrails, windows, floors, and walls. I can go and break that one down. So it's basically, I haven't seen how far, like so far it's broken this down into like five subcategories within that one element. But it just keeps going. If you don't need to break it down as much, you can have it break it down less. But again, it's very good for doing the task analysis. And now I'm going to try to switch over to my notebook LM. So I have one that's called high leverage practices. In one of my classes, I talk about high leverage practices in special education. And it says there's 26 sources in here. So, and that's quite a few, but I could get another, I believe in the unpaid version, I can get up to 50. So I'm only halfway through the sources just for that particular notebook. This is the free version, by the way. But it also offers some like questions that I could, if I can't think of a question, it gives me a possible question. So one of them down here says, what are the core components of effective instruction for students with disabilities? I just click on that, and it takes a few seconds, but it will probably list some of those high leverage practices and core components once I give it enough time to. I've kind of noticed, okay, so now it says, so I click jump to the bottom. It's still working on it. It could be that, okay, here it is. Based on the provided, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it says, based on the provided sources, effective instruction for students with disabilities involves several core components, high leverage practices, explicit, and then it goes into some of those. One that we talked a lot about in my current class is explicit instruction. That's a key pillar for instruction in behavior and academics, and one of the most well-researched high leverage practices of teaching K-12 students with disabilities. Obviously, explicit instruction also works for students without disabilities. So, and it involves breaking things down, having clear, measurable, feasible lesson objectives, and delivering lots of opportunities to respond. My students were just doing this earlier today. They were giving examples of explicit instruction. So that's great. And then it continues on to, there's like 10 or 12 different, 14 different items that it provides as important elements of teaching students with disabilities. And of course, I could just have it say, give me an example of explicit instruction. Example of explicit instruction, and I could ask it to do that in, let's say I've done 3rd grade, I've done 7th grade. Let's try in kindergarten. And in explicit instruction, we're teaching kindergartners the alphabet. How about that? Kindergartners, let's see. Alphabet. Hit my little input that in. And again, it's going a little slow compared to what I'm used to. And it may be that I've got so many other things on my screen that it's just slowing it down just a bit. And while it's doing that, I'm going to ask my class and also people on Zoom if there's anything that you think that would be difficult. What do you think might be difficult for generative AI to do? It's And I've got a couple students.
They don't know the student like you do, so
Okay.
that just wouldn't work with that student, and it wouldn't know.
Okay, yeah. So even though sometimes it seems like it can read our minds, it's going off of basically what's out there on the web primarily. That's what it's been trained on, is all this data out there. So if things are, if it's something that's fairly common and it happens a lot, that it might be able to provide good information. But again, if it's a very specific situation and you don't give it all the details, then it may not be able to give you the information or the response that you're looking for. And did I see another hand raise, or anyone else want to tell me something else that might be difficult for? Okay, well, it looks like my response came through for teaching kindergarten. Let me take a look at it. It says first, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it mentions having a clear learning objective. Today, we're going to learn how to recognize and say the names of two new uppercase letters, A and B. And by the end of our lesson, you'll be able to point to these letters and tell me their names. Okay, and then we've got an introduction or review, activating prior knowledge. Yesterday, we practiced our rhyming words and sounds at the beginning of words. Today, we're learning the letters to make those sounds. Remember how important letters are for reading and writing. And then we've got modeling, the I do component. The teacher demonstrates the skill while thinking aloud. This is the show phase. For alphabet recognition, this involves showing the letter, naming it, and potentially connecting it to a sound or key word. For handwriting, modeling involves demonstrating the strokes. So it's got an example here. The teacher holds up a card with a large uppercase A. Look at this letter. This is the uppercase letter A. It has 3 lines, one that goes this way, traces with the finger, one that goes this way, and 1 line across the middle. When I say this letter, I say A. I'll say it again, A. Now watch me write it. So I go to the whiteboard or paper. So it gives me all the directions for, again, teaching that letter A, and then repeating for letter B. Then it mentions guided practice. Everyone look here. What's the name of this letter? And I'm waiting for a choral response. Actually, go ahead. What's the name of this letter? A. All right, great. And then I taught B too, but I didn't go through that. So what's the name of this letter? Actually, we learned it in sign today. So B, great job. All right. So it continues to go on with independent practice and then a review. And so I think it may not be perfect, but it's a pretty good, I think, summary of using explicit instruction in a kindergarten class for teaching the alphabet. All right, so stop sharing this and go back to my slide presentation. I see we've got several things up in the chat, and that's great to see. Also, there's a Q&A, but you can use the chat to ask questions as well. All right, I'm going to share my remainder of my PowerPoint here. All right, so we did the, we saw how to use Goblin AI and Notebook LM. And I'd like for everyone to think about a way that you could use one of those two. They're called APIs. So I think it's application programming interface with the large language model. So how might you use Goblin AI? I didn't show you all the other things it can do, but it's kind of fun to explore that API. And I did want to bring up accessibility technology. So this is an area where I think there's lots of high tech has been trying to be accessible. There's still lots that needs to be done to make technology more accessible for all people. Microsoft has some AI accessibility tools and I think a grant program. They're just one of many high-tech companies that are thinking about accessibility. But there's things like seeing AI, so using the camera because AI is very good at identifying objects in pixels. Something called immersive reader, which and reading progress, they're both reading-based AIs that help people that are learning to read or that need more supports with reading. That's one of many different reading technologies that are available online right now. And so it's, I'm actually teaching an assistive technology class. So we teach it kind of the same way we've always taught it, using, the person, centering it on a person's individual needs and finding the right technology to help them be part of their, the environment, and then the training that needs to occur there. But AI can help us with maybe practical case uses of technologies that we have that we're just learning about. So we can ask AI and get more information and maybe ways of learning about it before, without actually having to purchase the actual technology before we learn what it can do and how to use it. And again, a lot of AI itself has some accessibility features built into it. So rather than just typing our prompts, we could just, in many cases, there's a audio feature that will basically do text or speech to text. So it'll turn what somebody asks as kind of like Siri and Apple. You can just ask it a question and it will respond in the same way, but with a little more ability to come up with new ideas. Okay, the last part I want to talk about before we go into questions is just ethical considerations. I mentioned it at the beginning, there are questions about privacy. So anything that's online, there's a possibility that it could be hacked or that the data could be accessed by someone that's not supposed to have that. So it's in AI, they talk about PII or personally identifiable information. And that's kind of a thing that you should be aware should not go into your prompt. So you don't want to put real people's names or birthdays or any other kind of data. Now, again, these large language models have been trained on whatever's on the internet. So they've scraped lots of information off the internet already. And that leads to some questions about transparency as well as bias. So we know that lots of things on the internet are false or misinformation. And so the people that train these, that work with these, GPT stands for generative pre-trained transformer. So the pre-training is when they basically get all this data off the internet, and but they also can set kind of parameters for AI so that it doesn't do things that we think are illegal or unethical. But all of those guardrails they're not perfect. So sometimes AI hallucination is part of it as well, because it's that generative piece where if it doesn't have the answer, it's going to make something up sometimes. So that's another area that we have to be aware of, that even though AI keeps getting better, there are still a lot of cases where it will just make things up and or have other errors. So using it for medical or legal things could be it's probably not ethically wise to do that. If your life or your financial situation is in jeopardy, you don't want to just turn things over to AI. There is a lot of guidance out there on critical literacy using AI, and I've put a couple of links in my Google Doc, which is at the end of the slideshow. And this should be made available to everyone that's participated today. There are also lots of professional associations. Again, CAST, they're the ones that do universal design. They've come up with some guidelines for using, and Common Sense Education or Common Sense Media is a good place to get information for teachers, parents, and just users of AI in general. All right, so I'm going to kind of conclude by talking about why we might use AI for inclusion. Part of it is to increase accessibility and personalization. So again, if we put in good information, we have a good idea for some of the students, and we want it to work for everybody. It's always helpful to run it through AI and see if it can. It's very good at brainstorming new ideas and coming up with creative solutions. And so it's one way to increase our planning for accessibility and personalizing our instruction or training for all individuals. It's also great at supporting communication across the board. So it's good at translating from one language into another. And it's good at taking complex language and breaking it down into more simple language. You can use a term called ELI, explain like I'm, and you can put a number in there. So ELI 5 means explain it like I'm a 5-year-old. So you could say, I've got a paragraph written for a college student, but I'd like to see what it looks like if I were to explain it for a 5-year-old or a 10-year-old or just whatever age level you think is appropriate. So it's definitely a powerful communication support. And I think it helps reduce barriers to information. So it's not perfect at this, and we still have to teach people how to use AI critically and to be literate about how to use it. But it's able to come up with new solutions to problems and look at things in a different way. So it's kind of like asking a friend or asking, somebody else about a topic that especially if you're only just beginning to learn something, it can have more of it's not always expert, but at least pretty high level knowledge of a lot of different things. And then I think it can amplify student and family voices and again, help people be more self-advocates. So again, we used it in a kind of an IEP scenario where we could kind of speak from the perspective of a parent or of a student with a particular disability and be a little more authentic in coming up with what might be their thought process. So it's, again, a way to, if we're struggling to put things into words, AI can be very useful for that. All right, so my final thoughts are just that AI is a supportive tool. It's not a replacement for our own thinking, but it is it's always available and doesn't get tired of us asking questions that might maybe sound a little odd or unusual. I think that it's important to think about using AI for intentional inclusion of all individuals, particularly in classrooms where students with disabilities have often not been included, or when they're only included in kind of being there in the classroom, but not really participating in the activity. So this can give us more options for real, authentic participation and inclusion. I think it can be useful for having collaborative meetings to improve the lives of individuals with disabilities and just to make special education work better. And I think it's something that as teachers and people that are in the helping profession, it can help us learn and stay on top of new changes in the field. And it can be a great tool for professional development. And I'd just like to encourage you to start small, and you don't have to become an expert overnight on any one thing. And it may be that you just want to try out one of these things that I've just shown you and try to get a feel for it in your whatever you're doing. And that's it for my presentation. This is the link is on my the last slide. It's a bit.ly link. And I'll leave that up there for just a minute. And can somebody, maybe Devon or Donald, if you can read over the chat box and see if there's some questions that I can address for the remainder of our time. And I'm going to let my class go because they only have to stay until 2:50. So, but I will stay on for the next 10 minutes and address any questions that might come up.
No questions just yet.
Has anyone tried to put a prompt into GPT or into Gemini, Copilot? I've got one from my classroom.
Online website that can be used for differentiation for reading activities.
Okay. Find out about free online reading differentiation opportunities. Great. And it gave you I'm sure it gave you lots of resources. And again, you'd want to check sometimes I've noticed that some links will work and sometimes they don't work. So, but you might be able to say this link is not working, and it might say, okay, my mistake, and then it'll generate the correct link as well. Hey, any other questions that have come up in the Q&A or on the or in the chat box that I can address?
No questions yet.
While you're still on, I wanted to tell you some, maybe you tell other people about education co-pilot.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So there's Copilot has kind of it's called Education Copilot. Yeah. So I think most of the big AI companies they're pretty interested in education. And again, I've listed about 10 or 11 different resources on my Google Doc. Some of them are smaller and some of them are bigger, but most of them have in some way or another, they link into AI. And so you can even like our Microsoft Word and PowerPoint, they have elements of AI incorporated into the newest version. So you can get the AI to start doing some of the like, for example, with these slides, I used a design. There's a design feature in PowerPoint that it was able to kind of, once I got the information in, it was able to just kind of create the design on its own. So, I mean, that's been around, but it's now using more AI to do that. And of course, I'm sure anyone that's used the internet, Google has kind of this AI that when you do a search, one of the first things that comes up is an AI summary of that search. Do you have a?
Yeah. Have an 8 pen if you want. Thank you so much.
Okay, I guess there aren't any questions.
If there are questions, I guess I forgot one last thing, or at the beginning, I thought I had my email. Maybe I didn't. I put my email into this, but it doesn't look like I did. My email is kccosgriff@gmail.com. And it's, again, if you go to the link, I think my email's in that Google Doc. So I'd be happy to respond.
I'll put it in the chat for
Okay. Yeah. So, okay. And I know we probably have a range, and I probably should have asked this at the beginning. There's probably a range of people that use or don't use AI for a variety of reasons. And I think it's important to be aware, even if you're not going to use AI, I think it's important to be aware of it because it is impacting how job, any career is going to be impacted by AI to some degree, just like computers and the internet have impacted different kinds of jobs. So in terms of it's impacting the education, it's impacting law, it's impacting medicine. So all of these aspects of our the future are being impacted by how AI is being used. And it's important, I think, for us to be involved as professionals or people with an interest in individuals with disabilities or people with disabilities. That we have this idea of nothing about us without us, and so AI is being, incorporated into just all aspects of our life, and it's important that we get a perspective of individuals with disabilities and how AI is affecting their life. Particularly, this is generative AI, because AI itself, again, your algorithm for doing a Google search has been based on AI for many years. But generative AI, I think, is kind of a new level of change in terms of the way we're getting information. It could also impact, whether we can trust the information, again, because of things like deep fakes and that kind of thing. I'm just going to stop sharing for a minute and see if I can read some of those chats myself. Oh, thanks. Thank you all for participating. And yeah, I'm sorry that it is a little bit tricky to jump from screen to screen during a webinar like this. But again, you can go to any of those resources online by following the links in my Google Doc. Well, I appreciate Tash and Devon and Donald for hosting this webinar. I enjoyed giving it. I hope everyone learned something from the presentation.
Yes. Thank you, everyone, for joining, and we'll see you next week for our next webinar. Thank you again.
Thanks.